Hello, everyone. I will present one of the 4 innovation studies in the mixed project, and this one is about integrating organic fattening pigs and willow. Just a minute, I'll see if I can switch to the next slide. I hope you can see the next slide now. As I said, this is a part of the mixed project, but it's also at least a part of this study has been in a close collaboration with this national project, what we call økologiske slagtegrise i nyt koncept med stald og træ. And of course, this is the study has been carried out in Denmark, very close to where we're located, this forum. At what we call the Organic Research Platform from Aarhus University. And in the mixed project, we have 2 Danish farmer networks, and one of these networks are focusing on organic livestock production and on agroforestry. So we have 4 organic pig producers included in this network, and we have 4 organic dairy farmers included in this network. And 2 of these organic pig farmers, they are very large scale, producing, or not producing, but having around 500 organic sows and more than 1,000 organic sows. So very large scale organic production. And all their sows are integrated in or are mixed or are kept in these mixed integrated systems with pasture and trees, as you can see here. But the fattening pigs, they are still produced in these very common organic fattening pig systems, where they have access to some indoor pens and then access to some outdoor concrete ones. So in this innovation study, we are trying to explore an alternative to this system, an alternative which is more aligned with the organic principles, the consumers' expectations, and more in line with this mixed integrated sow concept. So that is the frame of the innovation study. And I will of course come back to this in a minute. But first, I would like to give you a very brief introduction to the Danish organic pork production. Here you see the number of produced organic fattening pigs in Denmark and how it has developed over the last years. And as you can see, there has been a significant increase in growth in this organic production. So at the moment, we are producing about these almost 250,000 organic fattening pigs per year. But because we have this very huge conventional pig production in Denmark, it's still only corresponding to a share of approximately 1% of the total pig production in Denmark. So you can see that it's still a niche production, even though it has increased. There is quite a large interest globally in the organic or in the organic pork produced in Denmark. And this is a surprise for many, but actually we are also exporting a large proportion of the organic pork that we produce, mainly to France, to Germany, and also to the Netherlands. So it's only about 30% of the pork that we produce in Denmark that is actually consumed in Denmark. But then if we look at the market share of organic pork in Denmark, and I apologize for this figure being in Danish, but here you see the market share of organic pork. And as you can see, it's very low compared to the market share of, for instance, organic eggs, organic milk. So it means that only less than 4% of the pork that we produce in Denmark is organically produced. Or of the pork that we consume in Denmark is organically produced. So there should be some space or room for improvement and for further development. So what do the consumer then get if they buy this organic pork? What is the organic practice behind the pork? Well, all the lactating sows, they are kept in these systems, pasture systems, and also the majority of the pregnant sows. So they are outdoor all year round in summertime, but also in wintertime. And it's a very typical rotation. Crop rotation is a 2-year crop rotation with pasture and pigs, followed by barley, undersown with grass clover, followed by pasture and pigs, and so on. This is the most common way of doing it. So when the piglets are in average about 7-8 weeks, and in some farms even up to 10 weeks of age, they are weaned from the sows and then moved to these indoor housing systems with access to these outdoor concrete runs. And these systems has been rather criticized over the years. This is not only what we see in Denmark, it's all over Europe, or at least the majority of organic fattening pigs are produced like this all over Europe. And they are often criticized for not being in compliance with the organic principles of allowing the pigs to perform their natural behavior, and maybe not aligned with the consumers' expectations to this organic pork that they buy. And furthermore, there are many issues related to poor hygiene, because the urine and feces mixed on these large soil surfaces, of course, increases the risk of ammonia emission. And especially in the summertime, because we have the sun radiation, because it's not covered the entire soil surface. Yeah, so also when we're asking farmers across Europe, as we did in this power project, which was a co-organic co-fund project, we had workshops across Europe and with the farmers, and they also report that, well, the outdoor runs, they are mainly used for excretory behavior. And also that the outdoor run is not creating a positive image for the organic production system. But then we also asked the farmers whether they had some ideas of how to improve these systems. And one of the Danish farmers, and it's actually one of the network farmers, he suggested to try to combine these systems with some access to pasture with the trees, for instance, willow trees or poplar trees. And this about combining indoor housing with pasture access. That's not, well, in Denmark it's uncommon, and also in the other European countries, at least for the fattening pigs. But in Sweden it's not that uncommon. And here you can see a Swedish farmer. I think actually he's a conventional farmer, but producing some high value pork. He has this rotational concept, which I believe you also know from the UK, but more in the sow herds. So that's not so unusual, at least not in Sweden, as I said. But then what about the trees? Why do we want to combine it, the pasture with trees? Well, first of all, because it will probably improve the animal welfare, because the pigs have a more, what we call, stimuli-rich and more natural environment. And not least, it certainly improves the pig's possibility for performing this thermoregulatory behavior, seeking the shade, as you can see very clearly here on the Spanish dehesa, the black-footed pig, but also in Denmark under the poplar trees. And it can, of course, also provide shelter in the autumn and winter time. But we also want to implement trees because we would like to reduce the nutrient losses, the very well-known issue of nutrient losses in these outdoor systems, free-range systems, especially leaching of nutrients. And we expect the trees to be able to decrease the nutrient leaching because, well, they have a large root system, both vertical but also horizontal compared to grass. They have a longer growing season compared to grass, but definitely certainly not least, the trees are more robust towards the pigs. You could say very aggressive rooting behavior. So that's why we want to combine it with trees, and mainly fast-growing trees like willow and poplar energy crops. We already studied some systems integrating pigs and willow and poplar, which you can read more about in these papers, but we never looked at combining the indoor housing of the fattening pigs with these willow or poplar systems. So that's where this innovation study comes into the picture. And you could say that the overall aim is to improve the consumer acceptance and credibility of organic pork production by introducing this new summer concept in the fattening stage, giving the pigs access to pasture and willow trees, and of course without having negative side effects on the environment or on resource efficiency itself. And the more specific objectives were to in this new summer concept, combining the indoor housing with access to pasture and willow, to investigate the effect of feeding strategy, and that was the focus of the first part, the 21 experiment, but also to investigate the effect of animal density, because of course land, we should have focus on the land use and land requirement, given that the farmland is a limited resource. And then we looked on animal and crop performance, resource, especially feed efficiency, soil nutrient losses, not only the load, but also the spatial variation and distribution, animal behavior, of course, and finally also, at least in the second part, the 22 experiment, we also looked at animal health, especially parasites, and this is in cooperation with a new organic co-fund project coordinated by KU, Copenhagen University. It's called Roam-Free. Yeah, so here you see the experimental site at the organic research platform. Part 1 in 21, it was without the concrete ones. They were not established yet. But here you can see the indoor pens are in here, and then the pigs have access through these small holes in the wall. Yeah, and then in the very early spring 22, we was very lucky to have these outdoor runs established at the research platform, and that's of course trying to copy the organic practice. So this is how the experimental setup looked like in 21 and 22. So in 21, we compared these two different feeding strategies. We call it norm versus restricted. So half of the pigs were fed according to their requirements, and the other half was only given 70% of their requirements. So we had these 6 paddocks in 3 replicates or blocks, you could say, and we gave them 200 square meters per produced pig, and they were not introduced until 90 kilograms. So this is a very low animal density, but we wanted to make sure that there was enough herbage, enough grass, enough willow biomass for these pigs fed restricted. But what we saw in this experiment was that they didn't really consume any willow. I'll come back to that. So what our focus was, what it changed in 2022 to investigate the effect of animal density. And this time we fed all the pigs close to a libitum with this with compound feed, and we investigated a rather high animal density, only providing the pigs 50 square meters versus 100 square meters per produced pigs. And this time we introduced them already at 30 kilogram live weight. So again, we had these 6 paddocks, 2 different treatments in 3 replicates. And then we also had a kind of control pen, which was not really a control because we had no replicates, but anyway, they didn't have any access to pasture. So yeah, the animals, as I said, in 21 they were introduced at 92 kilogram live weight. This means that they were only 37 days in this experiment. And this year we had them introduced at 30 kilogram live weight, and they were 70 days in the experiment. Yeah, so the willow, we cut down the willow the year before in February, and we did that both years. And this means that in 21, when we introduced the pigs, it was not until in the middle of June. The willow looked like this. And then in 2022, we had to introduce the pigs much earlier due to some practical reasons. So it was in late April, and the willow looked like this. And of course, we performed a lot of recordings, measurements, etc. In relation to the animals, of course, we weighed the pigs when they introduced to the experimental paddocks and also at slaughter to look at the growth and the feed efficiency. And then we had a lot of animal behavior observations, hours and hours of observations, focusing on the pigs' interaction with the trees, the elimination behavior, and how it was distributed, etc. And this was a combination of scan sampling and all occurrence methodology. And then we also, of course, looked at the crop and the soil. We looked at crop damages, the crop yield, the nutritional value of the willow, and also the nutrient load, the spatial distribution in the top soil, but also deeper down to 1 meter. And we measured this just before and after pig grazing. And then in the second part, after we established the outdoor runs, we also had a focus on the hygiene in the indoor pens, but also, of course, in the outdoor run. So yeah, so now I would like to show you a few what I call very preliminary findings. There are still a lot of data analysis to perform, but I have some photos and a few results also. And first, the nutritional value, pig nutritional value of the willow, this green willow biomass. You can see here from the first year and from the second year. And the first year, it was harvested, these samples were harvested in June. And because the branches were rather woody, we could say, we separated the leaves and the branches. But in the second part in May, it was more, everything was more soft, and the branches were still also very soft. So we just pooled everything in one sample. And here, what is interesting for us livestock or pig persons of course the dry matter content, and as you can see, it's very much it's very similar to grass clover. And what is also very interesting for the pig production is the crude protein content, which is also rather high in these leaves and also in the pooled samples compared to grass. And then the energy content. These are some the Danish feed units, but this is the bottom. It's metabolic energy, and as you can see, well, here the willow do not perform as well as grass clover because the energy content on a dry matter basis is significantly lower compared to grass. And then I just brought some results from a national project called OUTFIT, where we are looking at how to improve the value of the trees in these pig systems. For instance, by harvesting the willow, willow and poplar, to produce this silage. And this is willow silage, but we also produce poplar silage. So this is just to show you that when you ensign the willow and the poplar, it looks very much the nutritional composition or value is very close to what we see in the unconserved biomass. Yeah, and then of course we also look at the available biomass of this willow, and here you can see a very clear effect of the animal density. It became clear very early in the experiment that we would see a clear effect of the animal density. Here you can see I marked all the high density paddocks. So compared to, for instance, if you look at this block, this is a low annual density and a high annual density. So a huge difference on the available biomass. And you can also see it up here in the corner, this very clear difference between the two treatments. And also at a later stage, we also saw a very clear effect of the animal density. So also when looking at the yields, the dry matter yields, which you can see in this, we have here the May harvesting and the samples from July, and the high density, the black or dark blue, and the low density, a huge effect of the density on this available biomass. And then again, I just added some findings from the OUTFIT project, and this is in Danish, but here it says dry matter yield shown as tons per hectare when harvested in June and harvested in September. And this is willow and this is poplar. Here you can see that again that it's very close to our observations when harvested in June, but you can also see that the yield increases significantly if you wait to September to cut down the willow. Yeah. So what about the animal performance? Here you have the part 1, the first study, and the second study. And here, when we compared the two different feeding strategies, we expected to see a difference in the growth, as you can see here, and we also did. Of course, the restricted fat pigs, they performed. They had a lower daily gain compared to the norm pigs. The meat percentage was almost similar, and also the feed conversion ratio, the feed efficiency. Even though we expected the feed efficiency to be higher for the restricted fat pigs, because we thought that they were going to get a lot of nutrients and energy in the free range area, but it didn't look like that. So here in the second part, we didn't expect any differences between the densities, animal densities, and we don't see that. Here again, a daily gain, meat percentage, and the feed efficiency. But what we can see out of these figures is that it is possible for the pigs to perform very well in these systems, because this is very high growth rates and feed efficiencies compared to what we see in organic fattening practice. Yeah, so now I would like to show you mainly some photos and some videos. I hope it will work related to these animal behavior observations, because as I said, we had a huge focus on how the pigs interacted with the trees, whether they used it for play behavior, which is a positive welfare indicator, very important positive welfare indicator, whether they used it for exploration, foraging, etc., but also for resting, thermoregulation, and finally for elimination behavior, divided into defecation and urinating. So this first video clip is showing how the pigs, soon after they were introduced, so they are very young here, or I think about 35 kilogram live weight, they really like these new willow buds, I think you call it, or sprouts, the new sprouts. So they are, you can, yeah, maybe it's easier for me to see. I hope it works for you also. And in the next one, I would like to show you, first of all, it's very easy for you also to see the difference between the two animal densities. But here you can also see that the pigs are very active when they are outside and constantly chewing and rooting. And the final one is just to show you that the pigs could also use the willow for play behavior. I hope the sound is not too loud. It's mainly the pigs over here that you should pay attention to. So they just go on and on playing with the roots. Then just a few results related to the soil nutrient load, and some of you have seen this before. This is from the first part, the 21 experiment, where we divided each paddock into two main zones. This is zone 1 and zone 2, and then we also divided each of these main zones into subzones, subzone A, B, and C. And then if we look at the nutrient load, this is the N, the ammonium. Ammonium is the yellow or the orange pattern, and the blue one is the nitrate. And here you can see before pig grazing, the main zones 1 and 2 and the subzones A, B, C. And as you can see, no difference between the zone and the zones, and a rather low load of ammonium and nitrate. But then after pig grazing, there's a first of all, there's a huge difference between the before and after. So we see a rather high load in this willow, in these willow zones. And it also seems that we have some hot spots, especially, and this was also what we expected, nutrient hotspots just close to the entrance. And this is also what we see in these outdoor sow systems with the huts, because the pigs, they prefer to urinate between, or they not prefer maybe, but they often do that between 1 and 5 meters away from the resting place or the resting zone. So not in the resting zone, but 1 to 5 meters away. And that's exactly here. And this is the reason why, when we hoped that when we established these outdoor runs, that the pigs would deposit the majority of the urine here on or in the outdoor run, so that we could collect the nutrients, and then that they would only perform the excretory behavior out here. But unfortunately, I don't have these results yet, so we'll have to wait and see how it went in 2022. Yeah, and this is the last slide with the results, and I haven't analyzed the hygiene data yet, but just looking at this photo, it seems that there is an effect of density again on the hygiene level here. I marked the high density paddocks, and these are, of course, the outdoor runs, compared to the low animal density paddocks. And there also seems to be, and I know it's not really a control because I don't have replicates, but still it seems that it has a positive effect on the hygiene if we give the pigs access to these free range areas, and indicating that the ammonia emission will be lower in these systems compared to this system. So at the end, just a few lessons learned, very preliminary. But when combining indoor housing with access to pasture and willow, if we introduce the fattening pigs in June, we see a low intake and interest in this green willow biomass. However, if we introduce in April, and this is, of course, I forgot to say that, it's because it's at a much earlier maturity stage, or what you call it, compared to when we introduce the pigs in June. And they just seems to be more interested then. So we have a higher intake of this willow biomass. And if there is no concrete one established, we see some soil nutrient hotspots in the range area. And there seems to be a positive effect on the outdoor run hygiene, and therefore also probably on the ammonia emission when giving the pigs access to this free range area. And it seems possible to achieve very high pig performance and feed efficiencies in this concept. And of course, the big question is, and I need to look further into all the data. The question is whether it's possible without negative side effects on the environment in terms of nutrient leaching. Yeah, that was all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna-Grete. That was super. Yes, that was very clear exposition. As you say, it's early days yet. There's still a lot of results to come in. The results so far, because it's, I think, to many of us, it's quite a novel concept. So I'm sure there'll be quite a number of questions on that. So please, anyone that has any questions, please fire away to Anna-Grete.
Yes, I've raised my hands. Thanks very much, Anna-Grete, for the nice presentation. Grazing willows is quite novel. Did you assess the impact on meat quality?
Not on meat quality, not the eating quality, only on the carcass quality, as you said, or as you could see in this table, the meat percentages. So we do not look into the meat quality as such.
But do you think there would be changes in meat quality due to intake of willow biomass?
Not really.
Not
I don't
really.
think so.
Okay.
Because, well, first of all, because the intake is probably quite low, even though it seems that they are interested in consuming it, especially when we introduce them early in the spring. But what we have seen in the other experiments with the pigs on pasture, it's just that it's so difficult to influence the meat quality. But of course, at least in terms of eating quality, but of course you might be able to change the fatty acid composition of the pork or of the fat in the carcass. But I don't know how willow, it's probably mainly the grass, but maybe also the willow could have a positive effect on the fatty acid composition. Maybe.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Ulrich, you had a question?
Yes, hello, it's Ulrich from the AgroMix project. Thank you for this very interesting talk. I'm into organic farming myself. So the question I have follows on to that. Did you see that the compound feed you have used, was there any reduction for the pigs who had a lot of the willow? So is there any displacement of feed, or let's say economic saving, even if you have a slightly smaller feed bill, because obviously organic compound feed is very expensive. So that's a question I have, and also leading on to the other question what we had before, is there possibly a higher value for those pigs? Like the Hesse pigs, we can say they get an extra value from the feed they feed outside. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, well, if I can take the last question first. I hope that there could be some premium prices for this pork. At least that could motivate some farmers to introduce this concept. And we see that, I presented the 2 organic pig farmers in our network in the beginning, and one of these farmers who integrated poplar in all the paddocks for the outdoor sows, he is getting a premium price for the pork, but he's also combining it with other animal welfare improvements, longer weaning age, etc. So I hope that could be a possibility. And the first question is also a very good question, because that is actually why we wanted to compare the 2 different feeding strategies in the first part, because we our hypothesis was that, okay, if we reduce the compound feed amount, then they would be more motivated for eating this green willow biomass, and we will see an improved feed efficiency of the compound feed. But actually, we didn't see that. In opposite to other studies I did with growing fattening pigs on pasture, comparing restricted feeding with alleviotum feeding, we saw a huge positive effect on the feed efficiency of the compound feed. So, but unfortunately not in this.
Okay, thank you. Holger, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks for the talk, and it's indeed always very interesting. My question or my interest would be in the willows themselves. You mentioned you cut them in February, so that depending on when you introduce the pigs, you either have only the buds or a little bit more biomass already available. If you compare it to the Hesberg pigs, where the poplars or the trees are much bigger already, why did you decide to do it like that for now? Or is there also a plan to actually wait and see, I don't know, let the willows grow for maybe 1.5 years to see how things would change then? Because right now it looked like, for example, the shading effect of the willows is basically not there, especially if you introduce the pigs in April after cutting the willows in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Holger. That's also a very good question, because the idea of introducing the pigs to this green willow biomass, these buds and the soft branches, etc., and leaves, was that we wanted the pigs to consume or to have a kind of nutritional contribution from this willow. But it does not seem really to make any large differences on the feed efficiency of the compound feed, as I said. So maybe next year we should consider, because we're going to do something similar next year, because we just got a budget for that. So maybe we should consider not cutting down the trees. I'm not sure, because you're partly right about the shade. At least in the beginning, we didn't have a shade, but later on in May, when the temperature is also rising and the sun is stronger, it was possible for the pigs to seek shade, even though the willow was rather low. But it's also a question of optimizing the nutrient, the nutrient removal from this free range area, and maybe we should cut down the willow in August instead, to remove as many nutrients as possible. So that's something I have to consider for next year.
Yeah, can I just ask a question, Annika? Just actually following on from that, is part of the concept potential to use the biomass from the willow for energy production on site? Would that be part of the system? Oh,
it could be, because it's just a common energy crop, energy willow species, or what you call it, variety. So it could be used for energy production.
The other thing, sorry, just to ask another question. It was interesting to see that the crude protein content of the willow leaves is quite impressive, actually. I wouldn't have expected that. Would the part of that be through nitrogen coming in from the pigs, do you think, or is that a normal level for willow leaf protein?
Oh, I'm not sure that I understood the first part or heard you correctly.
Yeah, no, it's just that I was surprised at just the relatively high content of crude protein in the willow leaves.
The crude protein, yeah.
Yeah. And is that not, do you know, is that comparable to other work on that, or do you think the protein content was possibly due to the input of nitrogen from the pigs on the site?
Yeah, it's quite normal compared to what you can find in the literature.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
So yeah, it is interesting also from a pig nutritional
Yeah.
point of view.
And the silage that was made from that, was that made just from the leaves, or would that be stems and leaves?
The protein
In the silage you made from the
yeah.
willow.
Okay, the silage was a mixture of leaves and branches.
Okay. At least there's some interesting ideas. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, yes, thank you very much, Grete. That's super. That's a really interesting project, and I think there's going to be, I suspect, quite a few years of results ahead, which I think we'll all be very interested to see in the future. So again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone for attending, and hopefully see you next week on the 16th as well. Our next webinar is from Aarhus University. So again, thank you very much, and thank you much again, Grete, and goodbye for now.